They laughed at him, a quiet farmer with dirt under his nails, insisting he could stop a German Panzer with nothing but scrap metal, fertilizer, and a trick he'd learned watching wild hogs run through his fields. Soldiers mocked him, officers dismissed him, and locals whispered that he had lost his mind. But on one cold morning, when a Panzer rolled into the valley, his stupid farmer tricks didn't just work, they changed the fate of the entire front line. Real ingenuity often comes from unlikely places and people, and nowhere is that more visible than in moments when ordinary individuals are pushed to confront extraordinary circumstances. Ingenuity is not born in laboratories, nor is it limited to people with titles, ranks, or formal training. It often emerges from someone who has spent a lifetime observing the rhythms of life, studying the behavior of nature, or simply surviving day to day with limited resources. When someone like that faces a challenge that appears impossible, their mind turns not to theory, but to adaptation. They don't ask, "What tool should I use?" They ask, "What do I already have?" And that question opens the door to ideas others would never think of. There's something powerful about a person who isn't boxed in by doctrine. Soldiers trained for battle often rely on the weapons they've been issued and the instructions they've memorized. Engineers rely on calculations and familiar designs. But a farmer, a worker, a villager, they rely on creativity born from experience, improvisation, and the need to solve problems with whatever is available. They understand the land, the weather, the materials others overlook. While others might see obstacles, these people see opportunities hidden within the ordinary. That is the heart of real ingenuity, the ability to look at something simple, even mundane, and recognize a potential no one else has seen. It could be a piece of metal most would throw away, soil that seems unimportant, or a pattern in nature that everyone else ignores. An unlikely individual sees a solution in that forgotten detail. And when circumstances demand it, when lives depend on it, that small insight becomes an advantage stronger than steel. Ingenuity from unlikely people also carries something others lack: the freedom to think without fear of breaking rules. Because they never operated within strict systems, they aren't afraid to step outside them. They aren't limited by what is supposed to work or what should be impossible. Their solutions come from instinct, logic shaped by life, and a confidence built from years of solving problems that didn't allow hesitation. When faced with overwhelming force, they don't see themselves as helpless. They see the world around them as a toolbox waiting to be used. This kind of creativity reveals a deeper truth about human capability. When people underestimate someone, they often overlook the knowledge and skills that person quietly carries. A lifetime of experience, whether farming, crafting, repairing, hunting, or simply observing, builds a mind capable of solving problems in ways formal training sometimes fails to inspire. The brilliance of such individuals isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It waits, hidden behind calloused hands, simple clothes, and a humble life. But when the moment arrives, it can reshape the outcome of events far greater than one person should be able to influence. Ingenuity does not belong to the powerful. It does not belong to the highly educated. It belongs to those who look at the world with curiosity, courage, and the confidence to try something no one else dares to imagine. Understanding terrain can be more powerful than having weapons because the land itself becomes a silent ally for those who know how to read it. Terrain is not just ground beneath one's feet. It is elevation, shadow, wind, soil, visibility, and the natural pathways everything follows. Someone who understands these elements doesn't fight the environment, they use it. In many conflicts throughout history, the side with fewer resources has relied on terrain to even the odds. A hill can become a shield, a valley a trap, a narrow pass a choke point that neutralizes overwhelming force. The land tells a story, and those who can interpret that story gain an advantage no weapon can match. When a person knows the terrain intimately, they understand how machines will move, where soldiers will walk, and which routes appear safest but are actually vulnerable. Tanks, vehicles, and large formations are predictable because they must stick to stable ground. But someone familiar with the natural patterns of the area can anticipate exactly where heavy machinery will hesitate, where it will accelerate, and where it will unknowingly expose itself. Even without firepower, this knowledge becomes a map of opportunity. Every slope, ditch, and bend becomes a strategic factor waiting to be used. Terrain knowledge is also a form of invisibility. A person who blends into the landscape, who moves with its natural curves and uses its natural cover, becomes almost impossible to detect. While an enemy relies on sight lines and assumed safety, the terrain expert relies on instinct. They know how sound travels across open fields, how fog settles into low ground, how shadows shift as the day progresses. They know when to move, when to wait, and how to make themselves part of the environment. It transforms them from a target into a ghost who appears and disappears at will. Weapons can run out. Ammunition runs dry. Machinery can fail, but terrain never runs out, and it never betrays someone who understands it. With enough knowledge, a slight depression in the earth can become an ambush point. Loose soil can slow a vehicle. A narrow trench can conceal movement, even whether tied to terrain. Morning frost, a sudden slope of soft earth, patches of mud, can be turned into a strategic advantage. The person who knows the land doesn't need perfect conditions. They shape their strategy around whatever conditions exist. There's also a psychological power in terrain expertise. An enemy that cannot predict its opponent becomes cautious, slow, and reactive. Every step becomes a question. Is there a trap ahead? Is that empty field really empty? Should we move or wait? This hesitation gives the terrain expert time to position, time to observe, time to act. And in conflict, timing can be the difference between victory and disaster. Ultimately, an understanding of terrain proves that great advantage doesn't always come from strength or force. Sometimes it comes from awareness, from studying the quiet details others ignore. The ground becomes a tool, the environment a shield, and knowledge the most reliable weapon of all. Never underestimate someone simply because they aren't a soldier, because the value of a person's mind, skills, and life experience often holds power far beyond the boundaries of formal training. A uniform may symbolize authority, discipline, and preparation, but it does not monopolize intelligence, creativity, or courage. People who never set foot in a military camp may possess abilities that soldiers do not learn, abilities shaped by years of problem solving in the real world rather than on a battlefield. These individuals carry knowledge developed through necessity, hardship, observation, and survival, knowledge that does not come from books or drills, yet can prove decisive in moments of crisis. Someone outside the military framework approaches problems differently. They aren't conditioned to follow patterns or standard procedures, so they see options others overlook. Soldiers often rely on established tactics, equipment, and orders. Civilians, on the other hand, rely on instinct, improvisation, and resourcefulness. They think laterally, not vertically. They ask, "What can I do with what I have?" instead of "Where is the proper tool?" That mindset is powerful because it allows innovation where rigidity would fail. It is the kind of thinking that has led to ingenious solutions throughout history, solutions that turned impossible situations into unexpected victories. A person who isn't a soldier also lives closer to the ground reality. Farmers, craftsmen, mechanics, hunters, miners, these are people who understand physical work, the behavior of materials, the unpredictability of nature, and the subtle cues in the environment. They have built, repaired, and adapted throughout their lives. They know how things break, how things bend, and how to make them work when they shouldn't. This practical knowledge may seem ordinary, but in the right moment, it can become invaluable. A mechanic may understand engines better than a tank crew. A hunter may read movement and distance better than a trained marksman. A farmer may understand terrain better than a reconnaissance officer. These strengths come not from rank, but from experience. Moreover, civilians bring emotional resilience shaped by protecting families, surviving scarcity, and enduring the everyday struggles that soldiers sometimes never face. Their courage is not always loud or dramatic. It is the quiet kind, the kind that gets up before sunrise, works until exhaustion, and still pushes forward because others depend on them. That kind of resilience translates into incredible determination when danger threatens their home, their land, or their community. They may not fight because they were ordered to. They fight because they refuse to lose everything they've built. There is also a unique unpredictability in someone who is not a soldier. An enemy expects soldiers to act like soldiers. They do not expect a farmer to map ambush points using crop patterns, or a craftsman to design traps from leftover metal, or a villager to outthink armored crews with nothing but knowledge of his surroundings. This unpredictability becomes a tactical advantage. When an opponent cannot foresee how someone will behave, they cannot prepare for them. That uncertainty can disrupt strategies, sow confusion, and create openings no formal military plan could anticipate. Underestimating such a person is often the first mistake made in conflict, and it is usually a costly one. History is full of moments where ordinary individuals outsmarted, outmaneuvered, or outlasted trained professionals simply because they saw the problem differently. Skill is not owned by soldiers alone. Bravery is not exclusive to those who carry weapons, and sometimes the most decisive minds belong to people who were never supposed to be part of the fight at all. Improvisation can reshape outcomes when resources are scarce because it forces the human mind to operate beyond routine and comfort, tapping into a deeper level of creativity and instinct. When everything you expect to rely on is gone, when tools break, supplies run out, and standard solutions fail, you are left with only imagination and necessity has always been one of the greatest engines of innovation. In moments of pressure, when lives depend on finding a solution with whatever is immediately available, people discover abilities and insights they never knew they had. Improvisation doesn't just fill the gap left by missing resources. It transforms the situation entirely, turning limitations into unexpected advantages. People who are forced to improvise begin to see the world differently. Objects lose their original purpose and become pieces of a greater puzzle. A broken tool might become the trigger for a device. Leftover scraps might become a mechanism. Soil, rocks, branches, discarded metal. Everything becomes raw material. Someone skilled at improvisation doesn't wait for the perfect conditions. They don't assume a problem is unsolvable just because they lack ideal equipment. Instead, they ask, what else can this become? That question alone opens doors that strict procedure and traditional thinking would keep shut. It allows people to build weapons without factories, traps without blueprints, and solutions without instructions. Improvisation also thrives in environments where predictability fails. In war, as in many parts of life, the expected plan rarely survives first contact with reality. Machines jam, roads become blocked, equipment gets destroyed. A plan crafted in safety can crumble under the weight of chaos. But someone who improvises thrives in chaos. They see opportunity where others see disaster. They adapt quickly, shift strategies instantly, and adjust without hesitation. This ability to pivot becomes more powerful than any weapon because it keeps them one step ahead of both the situation and the enemy. Another strength of improvisation is psychological. Opponents cannot predict what an improvised mind will do. Standard tactics can be anticipated, countered, and planned for, but a solution created on the spot from unexpected materials and unconventional thinking becomes nearly impossible to anticipate. This unpredictability breeds confusion, hesitation, and miscalculation in the opposing side. When the enemy does not understand how someone with limited resources keeps finding ways to resist, it disrupts their confidence. The psychological impact alone can shift the momentum of an entire conflict. Improvisation also reveals a deeper resilience. It shows that a person is not defined by what they lack, but by what they can create. Anyone can perform well with the best tools, the best support, and the best conditions. But those who can perform when everything seems impossible, those who extract advantage from scraps and obstacles, are operating on a different level. Their solutions may look simple or even crude, but the effect they create can be profound. History is filled with moments in which improvised strategies changed outcomes in ways that weapons and numbers alone could not. Ultimately, improvisation proves that resourcefulness can rival firepower. It reminds us that the greatest strength is not always technology or equipment, but the human mind's ability to adapt, imagine, and invent under pressure. When resources run out, imagination becomes the most valuable tool of all. Bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't draw attention to itself, but becomes unshakable when it matters most. Many people imagine courage as shouting orders, charging into danger, or standing boldly before an enemy. But real bravery often happens long before the moment of action, inside the mind of someone who decides they will not give up, no matter how overwhelming the threat may seem. This kind of quiet courage can look ordinary from the outside. It may not come with medals, cheers, or recognition. Yet it holds a strength far greater than many dramatic gestures because it comes from conviction, not spectacle. Quiet bravery belongs to people who act because they must, not because anyone is watching. They don't wait for applause, nor do they hesitate because they fear failure. Instead, they focus on what must be done, pushing through fear with determination and clarity. It is this steady, unwavering resolve that often shapes the outcome of dangerous situations. A person with quiet confidence isn't reckless. They don't underestimate danger, but they also don't allow danger to control them. They understand the risks fully and choose to face them anyway. That decision, made silently and without fanfare, is one of the purest forms of courage. This kind of bravery can come from many sources: responsibility, love, duty, or simply the belief that no one else will step forward if they don't. It is the bravery of someone who protects their home because there is no one left to do it. The bravery of a parent who shields their children without thinking twice. The bravery of a person who stands their ground because everything behind them is worth defending. Their courage is not born from desire for recognition. It is born from necessity and a deep sense of purpose. Quiet confidence also allows a person to remain calm when others panic. Panic spreads quickly, especially in moments of fear, uncertainty, or sudden danger. But someone with quiet bravery becomes an anchor. Their calmness stabilizes others. Their steady actions remind people that solutions still exist, that hope is still alive, and that not all is lost. This influence may not be loud, but it is powerful enough to shift the mood of an entire group. People naturally look toward the calmest person in the room during times of crisis, and that person, without trying, becomes a leader. Another aspect of quiet courage is its ability to endure. Loud bravery may burn brightly for a moment, but quiet bravery continues long after the initial shock has passed. It persists through fatigue, frustration, and uncertainty. It carries a person through nights of worry, days of pressure, and decisions that weigh heavily on the soul. It does not fade simply because the situation grows more challenging. Instead, it strengthens with every step taken forward. This persistence can make the difference between survival and collapse, victory and defeat. Quiet confidence also inspires trust. People may question bold speeches or dramatic gestures, but they rarely doubt consistent, steady actions. When someone acts with calm determination, it communicates strength without needing words. Others follow not because they are ordered to, but because they believe in the resolve they see. This quiet trust can unite people who feel lost or overwhelmed. giving them the courage to stand together. In the end, quiet bravery proves that courage does not always need noise or display. Sometimes the strongest courage is invisible until the moment it is tested. It appears in the steady hands of someone who refuses to run, the focused mind of someone who solves a problem under pressure, and the calm breath of someone who stands firm despite fear. It is a courage shaped by life, strengthened by experience, and revealed not through words, but through action. One person's idea, mocked by many, can change the course of a battle because innovation rarely looks impressive at first glance. Most world-changing ideas begin as something small, strange, or even laughable. People tend to reject anything that doesn't fit their understanding of how the world works. They feel safe inside familiar methods and predictable strategies. So when someone introduces a solution that breaks tradition, it threatens their sense of certainty. As a result, they dismiss it before even trying to understand it. Yet history repeatedly proves that the ideas people laugh at in the beginning are often the ones that end up shifting outcomes in dramatic ways. When a person refuses to let ridicule silence them, their idea becomes more powerful than the doubts surrounding it. They see possibilities others are blind to. Their mind isn't limited by established beliefs or conventional thinking. They experiment, observe, and trust their instincts. And because they are not bound by what should work, they create what does work. Innovation always comes from individuals willing to risk being misunderstood. They look at the same problem everyone else sees, but they find a path no one else recognizes. That makes their idea both vulnerable to mockery and capable of extraordinary impact. Those who mock new ideas often do so because they don't understand the reasoning behind them. They see the surface, but not the deeper insight. A simple object, a piece of scrap, or an unconventional method might look foolish until the moment it proves effective. And in times of crisis, effectiveness matters more than appearance. The moment an unexpected solution succeeds, doubt vanishes instantly and is replaced by awe. The same people who once laughed quickly become the ones who swear by the idea, telling others how brilliant it was all along. An idea does not need approval to reshape events. It only needs results. Another reason a mocked idea can change a battle is its unpredictability. When an opponent expects traditional methods, they prepare defenses against them. They know how to counter strategies that follow familiar patterns. But when someone introduces an unconventional solution, the enemy has no preparation, no counterplan, and no expectation. The element of surprise becomes a weapon in itself. A creative idea can catch an entire force off guard, disrupting their confidence and forcing them to abandon the strategies they believed would bring victory. In this way, a single innovative mind can unravel the momentum of a much stronger opponent. There is also a moral force behind such ideas. When others see that creativity and courage can overcome overwhelming odds, it lifts their spirits. It reminds them that they aren't powerless, that intelligence and heart matter as much as equipment and numbers. A single successful act of innovation can restore hope where hope was fading. Soldiers fight harder when they witness something that proves the impossible is still possible. And morale, once revived, becomes a powerful multiplier in any struggle. Often the only difference between failure and breakthrough is one person's refusal to give up on their idea. Even when others laugh, even when they doubt, even when they call the idea foolish, that individual remains steady. Their conviction eventually becomes the turning point. It is not the approval of the crowd that changes the outcome. It is the courage of the thinker who stands alone, trusting their vision until reality proves them right. This story isn't just about a farmer and a tank, it's about the power of the human mind when pushed to the edge. It reminds us that in the darkest moments of war, creativity and courage can stand against steel and fire. And sometimes, the most extraordinary victories come from people no one believed in. If you want more stories like this, the hidden, human, untold sides of World War II, then stay until the very end and keep exploring. because history's greatest surprises often come from its quietest heroes.